Guys, we're back with another sewing project. So I have a bunch of bits and pieces out here on my table. You can't see them all because some of them are out of frame, but I'm going to show them, hold them up and show them to you. So we're going to make another fabric journal cover. I have some just plain canvas or duck cloth, natural colored. I like to buy this natural buff colored. It comes, if you buy duck cloth, which is a really thick like canvas, you can get it printed, and then you can avoid this whole next step that we're going to do. I like this because I like to add my own fabric collage or paint or something to the cover. I have some ribbon that I got at in the Target dollar bin. I've got some fabric yo-yos, and yes, that's what these are called. And you can make these. I actually got these in a big bundle for, I don't know, a couple bucks on eBay. There are people on eBay, they just sell fabric yo-yos. They're kind of tedious to make, but you can make them out of scraps. If you guys want to learn how to make them, I do know how, and I could do a sewing tutorial on that. They're kind of tedious though, so think twice about it. I have some bits and pieces of lace from Josie in the Happy Mail that I just got, which I love. I've got this piece of, I don't know what this is or where I got it from. It's like a plastic like netting. I don't remember where I got it from, but I like the color. I've got some silk flower like petal things, you know, where you can like make your own flower. I've got a couple of scraps of hand-painted fabric that I did like ages and ages and ages ago. And then this is a sample of a fabric I was designing on Spoonflower, gosh, in 2010 maybe? Long time ago, maybe 2009. And it's one that I think I took down. I don't think I left up. It wasn't a very successful pattern, but I have this scrap, a sample. You always get a sample printed, so I thought maybe I'd cut some elements of that out and use that. And I have this. So this was packaging and something that I got, and I do save, I never buy cardboard and chipboard. Never. So I always save like the backs of my paper pads. That's nice chipboard. When I get packaging like this that's nice and flat and shaped the right way, I save it for using for making journal covers and things. So don't buy chipboard. Just save different things that come into your house. Now, ideally it would be, you know, interesting to leave this just the way it is and make a cover out of it, but we're not going to do that. I'm going to cut. First, I'm going to measure. Let's measure first, shall we? So I have a grid on my table, and let's see, this is about 15 by 8. Okay, so I just need to know how big it is before I cut it up. So it's about 15 by 8. Now I'm going to cut the front and back from the spine, so I have 3 pieces. If you're using chipboard that's not, or cardboard that's not shaped like this, then you just need to cut a piece for the front and a piece for the back that are equal size. Figure out how big you want your journal. And then you're going to need a piece for the spine. The height of all 3 pieces should be the same, right? The width of the front and back should be the same. And then the spine just depends on, you know, how fat of a journal that you want. So now that we have that and we've got our 3 pieces and they're cut apart, that's perfect. Now I need to take my canvas and I need to go get my big quilting ruler, and I need to cut 2 pieces of canvas that, since this was 15 by like 8, I need to cut this at least 16 by 9. I probably will cut it bigger than that. I'll probably try to use this whole piece. So I'm going to do that and I'll be right back. So now I've got my 2 pieces cut, 2 big rectangles. One for the inside and one for the outside. I'm not worried about the inside one. I'm also not worried about finishing the edges. In fact, I want them to fray, so I will probably spend a few minutes and pull some threads off all around all the edges. I when I do these kind of journal covers, I consider the fabric fraying as part of the finished look of the journal cover. And I think it just gives it some extra interest and texture. So I purposefully sometimes will fray the edges. And try to get all the threads in the garbage can, because otherwise they're going to, you know, make me crazy. And if you just yank on some of the threads, it should ravel pretty easily. It's a tight weave, this duck cloth, but it's not that tight. It's pretty chunky fabric, so you can see the threads pretty easily, even without my reading glasses on. I'm glad you all enjoy the sewing videos. Of all the arts and crafts that I do, I've been sewing the longest. There we go. Okay. So now that we have that done, I'm going to set one of these aside, and we're going to just work on one of them. And we're going to create a sort of a layered fabric collage. So I'm going to start layering my elements on here in probably a fairly random fashion, right on top of each other. I'm probably going to put more elements on the front than the back. But, you know, no guarantees. I like to try to look at it as a whole composition or a whole canvas. And I want to use elements of some of these, really, or most of them. And once I get something that's headed in a direction I like, I'll start stitching things down. I like this ribbon, so I know I want to use some of this ribbon. I don't use any pins, like, you know, I've already said that before. I don't really, not a big pin fan, unless I'm working on a garment. Then you'll see me break out the pins. Okay, so I am going to continue layering my pieces, and so I'm going to sew them down. I'm going to fast forward through that process. It is just straight stitching. There's no rhyme or reason to it. I'm going to try to distracted. I'm going to try to get as much of it on camera as I can. Use a denim needle. Which is a nice, sharp, thicker needle, because you're going to be working with lots of layers of thick fabric and trims, and the denim needle is not going to get stuck. Make sure that it's a newer denim needle and not an old, dull one, okay? And just have fun and play with your elements and get them sewn on in a way that makes you happy. So I am going to do that, and I'm going to try to move the camera around so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. You notice I lift that up with my left arm because I can't move it with the right, with my right arm. I can't move it with the left anymore. It's too heavy. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to fast forward through the process, and I'll be right back. So here is our outside piece of fabric for our outside cover. And I've gone ahead and I've sewn in a random fashion bits of lace and ribbon and trims and things that I pulled out and I had together because I liked the colors. I thought the colors went well, and I just sewn them on at random on my piece of fabric. I think this is going to be the front cover. I used mostly straight stitch. You could zigzag some of it down, and I did zigzag some of the laces down. If you know how to do set the zigzag stitch on your machine, use a larger size zigzag. It really is handy to make sure you catch all the little different pieces of lace and edges of the trims, and it's a little easier for sewing something like this. So now I'm going to trim this random piece of thread because that is going to bug me. So now we're going to get our other piece of fabric, which is right here. And it has a dirt smudge on it, so that's going to go on the inside. And I'm going to line them up so all the edges match. And then I'm going to take my 3 pieces of cardboard. Move my machine out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. Here we go. And I'm going to line them up here like this. I'm going to give myself at least a ½ inch around all the outside edges. And then I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to just trace some lines. The most important line is going to be, are going to be these ones here in the middle between the outside cover pieces and the spine. So I want to have those lines, those are the most important lines, because I want to stitch in between those 2 lines and then be able to slide my cardboard down in the pocket that's going to form. So now we're going to stitch around 3 of the outside edges and then straight up those, the middle of those center lines on either side of that spine. We're not going to stitch on either one of the pencil line. We're going to stitch right in the middle. So let's do that. And this is pencil, so it's not going to show up that much. And stitch to the outside of your outer pencil line so you have a little bit of room to slide the cardboard in. Don't stitch right on the line because that's probably going to be too tight. Put your needle down in the corner before you turn your fabric. Cut your threads. That's the outside 3 edges. And so now that we've done that, we have this big pocket. See? So, yeah, that looks good. And the edges aren't perfectly lined up, but this is the kind of journal cover that it doesn't matter that you don't care, because this Okay, so my camera ran out of juice. So this is the kind of cover that you don't care if your edges exactly line up. And the part that you missed because my camera ran out of juice and I didn't know it was I went ahead and stitched the top shut. And now we have a nice hardcover journal cover with, you know, that's nice and stiff. It's interesting because it's fabric. And I like when I have journals with fabric covers, I don't mind if they get like paint smudges and stuff on them as I'm working. I think that makes it more interesting. There's a lot of different ways you could add a signature to this, because obviously it's not a journal, it's just a cover until you put pages in it. You could poke holes directly through all the layers in the spine, cardboard and both layers of fabric, and stitch something in using pamphlet stitch so the stitches show on the outside. Or you could just stitch it to just pick up the inside layer of fabric. I think I'm going to just try to do the inside layer of fabric. I'm not going to show you how to do the signatures step by step. I'm going to speed through the process. There's a million videos out there on how to do this, including on my playlist, but also Shannon Green's and Sea Lemon and a bunch of others. So, you know, see what's going to work best for you and give it a try. Watch some videos. But I'm going to cut I'm going to use watercolor paper. You could use anything, but I'm going to use watercolor paper. I'm going to cut and fold my signatures. I'm going to speed through the process, and I'll be right back. Okay, there you go. There's a slightly more complicated but fun way to use fabric and sewing in your art journal process by making a different kind of fabric journal cover. This one, of course, is a little bit more involved than the last one, but not overly so, and the sewing techniques are very simple. You don't have to know how to do anything fancy. You don't even have to turn anything right side out. So give it a try. Probably the hardest part of this is putting the signatures in, and that's not overly hard either. As I said, there's a lot of videos out there on YouTube about how to bind books and add signatures in, and that's what each one of these groups of pages are called. They're called signatures, including on my channel. I also have a course on bookbinding and creating a fabric journal from scratch, or your own custom journal from scratch, over on Crazy Island University, and there's a few different ways to do covers in that video, none of which you've seen here so far, so you might want to think about going over there and giving it a try. It's not very expensive. I hope this gave you guys some ideas about what you could do with your fabric and your sewing machine with your art journal. Let me know what you come up with. I hope it was a lot of fun for you. I know it was for me. Go out and have a great day. Do something nice for yourself because you deserve it, and I'll see you later.